Smooth 98.1. Love music, love life. It's 7:31, and it's time for us to get right into the stories making the rounds from the dailies across Nigeria, breaking down the stories, dissecting them, and of course, analysis and your contributions as well. This is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast with me, Ayokumi Kekere-Ekun, and joining me this morning to analyze the stories and of course, make some sense and give context to these stories is Joseph. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ayo. Nice to be here again. Good morning, Lagos.
It's great to have you on this morning. All right, Lagos, just to let you know how you can be a part of Freshly Pressed, you can join the live stream. It's at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. That's on YouTube. And you can send your messages and contributions in via WhatsApp on 0809 444 0981. That's how you can be part of the conversation on Freshly Pressed this morning. All right, let's get right into it, Joseph. Let's start from the punch and talk about subsidy removal. Now, the federal government has so far saved about 400 billion naira as a result of the removal of subsidy on premium motor spirit, properly called petrol, since May 31, 2023, when the initiative was officially implemented, oil marketers stated on Thursday. What's your take on this? And what's your take on where we are at this point in time? It's a month after. How would you rate things right now?
Well, I think the focal point is that the pain of removal of subsidy is still very much with us. We've not yet seen any relief yet, but the signs that positive things will happen are there. This story, I would say, I might give a caution that we shouldn't start jubilating and celebrating. This is a projection. Actually, it's an assumption that this money has been saved. We would like to hear it from the government itself, how much they've been able to save. There have been a whole lot of controversy around how much NNPC was spending on subsidy and all that, and they have claimed that the federal government is owing it trillions of naira. So if you take away the how much the federal government is ostensibly owing NNPC Limited, then of course you've not really saved anything if you're paying back the money. So it would be nice for the government to come up. I think it's quite early, but eventually we should hear from the government what actually has happened, how much they've saved. We've heard a whole lot of very unclear things about the subsidy. At one point, the NNPC was claiming that they were funding this. So if they were funding and the money was not coming directly from the federal government, how then is there a save? You know, if you can follow what I'm saying. Yeah, so somebody was spending the money for you. Yeah, and NNPC is working for government, I agree. But NNPC say, we were buying this thing. We're spending the money from our own purse on behalf of the federal government. So federal government is owing us. So if we're to do the mathematics, it means that even if you save 4 billion, and you're owing somebody 2 trillion or 2 or 3 trillion naira, if you pay back for 400, you're still not in the clear. You're still owing. So I would say, that's why I say I made a caution. It's early days. The figures have to be really clarified. Let us understand where we stand, what the federal government has said. Let figures come officially, then I'll be celebrating. And then the mathematics should be very clear, as to what was spent, what is not being spent, and how much is being spent, and how much has been saved. These are the figures we would love to hear. And we will look on to eventually, I'm sure the National Bureau of Statistics will come up with figures. The federal government, accountant general, and so on, all these government agencies that are responsible will come up. Maybe in 100 days of the government, they may be able to reveal to us some of the things. But like I say, the positive signs are there. And that's what we should look at. But then, of course, the pains are there also. And so we look forward to how we can mitigate those pains with the positive things that have come out from removal of subsidy.
All right. Joseph, you mentioned mathematics a bit earlier. Just to quickly, mention this, as the oil marketers stated that there was also a high possibility for the cost of petrol to rise in July, which starts tomorrow, by the way, going by the recent floating of the naira against the United States dollar by the federal government.
Yeah, it's a possibility, because once you say that the price of petrol is going to be determined by market forces, then of course it means that it's subject to a whole lot of forces for supply and demand, for example, procurement costs and all that. If the prices change or in terms of procurement, then of course it will pass down to the consumers. So we should brace up for all such things. But the positive side is that it can also go down.
Depending
that's
on
the
where,
possibility.
depending on where the rates go.
Yeah, depending on how the rates go. So it's a matter of if we are balancing the economy properly, then we'll begin to see the positive results, and it will result in possibly it going down. But the ultimate solution to this is that we should refine petroleum products in Nigeria. We should refine our own crude. For goodness sake, we produce the crude. We should refine our crude here. So maybe when Dangote comes on board, depending on what kind of arrangement they have made with Dangote, maybe positively we'll see results.
Maybe positively we'll see results. All right, let me go to WhatsApp really quickly. There's a message here from PJ. PJ says the subsidy regime was supposed to end by the end of June. So what kind of abracadabra savings happened when the funding covered June? I think there's a PR machine out there just to portray everything this government does as a hit. Yinka Bolu says, okay, from the finance perspective, if you are borrowing to pay subsidy and you don't borrow again, then it's savings. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you for your thank you for that, Yinka Bolu. All right, Joseph, let's move on to our next story here. This is coming out of the Punch newspaper as well. Now, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has said that he's working to reform the nation's financial system and to also ensure a transparent budgetary process.
As I want to quote some of our politicians who say, even the blind can see this one, that he's made some positive moves so far in his calls, economic calls. And it is because of that, it's giving some positive reflection. And we look forward to these economic policies that he's talking about. And most importantly, I want to go to the point where he says he wants to ensure that the budgetary process is transparent. If we can do away with the budget padding, for example, and all the nebulous things that happen during budgetary system and in the country, from the government agencies, ministries, and departments that pad their budget items, to the National Assembly that feels that they have the authority to infuse costs and month figures into the budget, then we see really good results coming. And then most importantly, it's not just the budget itself, but budget implementation. Every budget becomes an act of the National Assembly, which is more or less like a law. It's actually a law, and it's meant to be implemented and enforced. So when people are not held accountable for how they execute the laws, the Appropriation Act, then there should be questions. People should answer questions for failing to spend the money the way it has been budgeted for. Where I come from, the background I come from, you cannot spend what you didn't budget. You can't. You have to go back, get it reviewed, and ask for the funds has to come from somewhere, or you move from somewhere to somewhere. But in this case, we find people who don't adhere to what has been budgeted. Instead, in some parts of the country, like sub-national level in this country, in some states, the budget is a mystery. You don't see the document, nobody sees it, nobody knows what it is contains.
Oh, you hear those figures being mentioned,
figures being thrown around. That's all that you hear. So this has to change.
This definitely has to change. All right, let's go to WhatsApp real quick for some messages. AB sending in this message. AB says, why all this talk about fuel price, fuel importation, dollars, etc.? Didn't the government just very publicly commission the Dangote refinery? Or was that merely an unveiling like Nigeria? Thank you for your message. AB Yinka Bolu says, I think we are way past discussing the pain when it comes with the removal, which had to be done. And some of us get it. That's in terms of subsidy. Now, what I am yet to hear from the people is at how much Naira to dollar rate was used to arrive at the present 488 to 500 Naira per liter pricing, and how much will be used to arrive at the anticipated 700 Naira per liter. Because it was reported that the Naira is presently undervalued, which means there's a possibility of shady practices in that FX space. Joseph Menye says, good morning, freshly pressed. The corruption in this country, you actually get confused how lies are treated as the truth. The federal government claims that it borrows to fund subsidy, yet NNPC also claims that they are the ones paying the subsidy, yet the latter is an agency of the government. This simply shows government's magic. They are flawless in this act. May God help Nigeria. I got there in the end. Thank you for your message, Joseph Menier. All right, Joseph, let's move on to our next story here. But for all our listeners and for those who are just joining in, this is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. You can be a part of the conversation by sending in your messages via WhatsApp on 0809 444 0981. And if you want to join the live stream, it's on YouTube at Smooth 981 FM Lagos. All right, this is coming out of the Daily Trust now. The Ibila community in Oju LGA, Last Local Government Area of Benue State, on Thursday called on the government at all levels for intervention over a lingering land dispute which has rendered them helpless.
I know it's sad because these are really communities in one local government. They are actually brothers. And why are they fighting? The university is supposed to be cited in their area, and because of that, they're killing themselves. It's possible that the government decided to cite the university there as a way of resolving this communal crisis that might have been lingering. From their account, it's been lingering. So what the government might have done is to cite the university in between the two communities so that it kind of takes away that issue of who owns it. And it's strange because I think some of these things could have been avoided. Whatever has happened here could have been avoided if the government, wherever government that is sponsoring this university, has done proper stakeholder management. Stakeholder management means that you meet the communities and tell them the rationale behind the choice of this area and the benefits that will flow from this citing the university in your community. Everybody will benefit. I mean, the child from the child from Oju, everybody will, your economy will change and so on. So it's not, and the truth simply is that government does not pay you for your land. When the government takes land, and these are things you can educate people. Just because they are taking the land doesn't mean they're going to pay you money for the land. They will pay for the economic trees on the land, where maybe this could be the causes of this agitation as to who you're going to pay it to and so on. But with proper stakeholder management, you can avert all these crises. You shouldn't wait until people kill themselves. People commit violence.
There should be a bit more proactivity.
Yeah. I mean, I know one case in down the deltas where another company was going to site electricity project in the communities. Now, these two communities are called one, they are the same name, they are named 1, 2, 3, 4. Now they were going to provide electricity to number 4, where their facility is located.
Okay. And
they said, okay, we want to give electricity. We cannot just put electricity in number 4. We want to give electricity to 1, 2, 3. And number 4 said, no, you can't. because these our brothers are not really directly hosting you. And because of this, they fought, burnt down houses of people, and so on.
Just
That's the
because
kind of
they did,
mindset up.
just because they didn't want the electricity to be extended to the other
Yeah, to their
communities.
neighbors who actually bear the same name. It's like your 1, 2, 3, 4. They call themselves the same name, but their number 1, 2, 3, 4. And number 4 that actually holds the facility said, no way, you can't give, these people can't benefit. It's not going to cost you anything. It's not going to take anything from you. But that's the kind of mindset our people have. And it's very sad. But the best way to actually deal with that is that you can talk to the people, engage them way ahead of even going to cite anything. Hold these conversations, discuss with people, tell them the benefits to them. Then they will be able to know that even though it is called this or that, it is to the benefit of everybody.
At the end of the day. All right. This is Freshly Pressed on Smooth 98.1. The show continues shortly. Stay with us. Things are happening, though.
I'm telling you. It's a funny thought to you.
I mean, if you give number 4 and it can be extended to 1, 2, 3 and doesn't take anything away from number 4, why?
It does not. It does not. It does not.
Or is it a case of number 4 wants to say, we have
yeah, we are the ones, we are the only ones, we have electricity, and the funny thing is that for you to get to number 4, you have to drive through 1, 2, 3, and which is why the company felt it's not fair to leave out these people. So why wouldn't give them? It doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't take anything from you. But they refused. They burnt people's houses. A judge, the High Court judge, his house was burnt down in that fight. So it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. The kind of mindset we have, dog in a manger mentality.
It's just sad. All right, welcome back. This is Freshly Pressed on the Smooth Breakfast on Smooth 98.1 with me, Ayo Kekere-Ekun. And still analyzing the stories this morning with me is Joseph. But before we go to our next story, let me just take a couple of messages from our WhatsApp platform. JP says, good morning, Smooth. The news on subsidy savings is incomplete. The federal government needs to say what was saved in the period and where the proceeds are going. I guess that's what you're trying to say.
Proceeds.
Well, JP, was the oil marketers who actually came out to make that statement. We're still waiting for the federal government to actually come out and give us the official side of things.
This is just conjectural. This is just a projection.
Ajayi says, good morning, Ayo. It will be deceitful to say that government has made any savings as a result of the removal of fuel subsidy. If the marketer's projection of 700 naira as the current landing price due to the floating of the naira in the foreign exchange market is anything to go by, then subsidy is already building up again. That's from Ajayi Olonilua. Thank you for your message. All right, Joseph, let's get right back into things and check out this story coming out of the Punch newspaper, where residents and commercial transporters operating in the Magboro community in the Obafemi Owode local government area of Ogun State have groaned over the bad state of the road connecting their community to the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Now, Joseph, we've come back to the issue of infrastructure and specifically the road network, which, for lack of a better word, is terrible, especially in these particular areas. It's nothing to write home about.
Unfortunately, there is nothing anybody can say other than that it's glaring that we have huge infrastructural deficiency in this country. I mean, we have deficit in roads, but even when the roads are constructed, they're not constructed so very efficiently that they stand the test of time. In the part where I come from, the roads built by the British, I grew to come and meet them, and some of them are still existing today, because the layering alone was so thick that even when erosions come, they can hardly do any damage to them. These days, we're building roads that are breaking away before they are commissioned, all because of corruption and cutting corners by contractors who want to make profit after they shared some percentage of the cost of the project with some government officials. So there is deficiency. I mean, this community is growing. There are many other communities. I mean, even federal government roads in some parts are not passable. If you go to Cross River State, we've seen pictures of tankers and the vehicles that are trapped for days. Sections of the east-west road in the Niger Delta has collapsed completely. They are not motorable. Not to talk about communities where they are at the mercy of the state government, at the mercy of the local government. So nobody really cares, you know. And all of this is because we can wipe away all of this by simply addressing the issue of corruption and budget implementation, like we said. We plow back the money into infrastructure. And this is one community. The other community, some people have grown in, nobody has reported their story. This one is because somebody has been able to issue a statement. Of course, that's why it's in the news. But you want to go around and check how many communities have this situation. You can't publish all these stories.
Quite a number of them.
Yeah, I had so many.
And of course, when we talk about bad roads, there's always a domino effect to these things, because people who have to go through those roads automatically is going to affect their vehicles, one problem or another, and then they have to spend a lot of money in order to get their cars, back together. Of course, I mean, monies that could probably have been used for other things, other more productive things for them on a regular basis, would then have to be used to.
It stifles the economy of that area. That is the most negative effect, is that it stifles the economy of the area. Like before I say, people can't build houses there and nobody will rent them. They can't move their produce to the market to sell because of bad routes. So the economy is stifled, At
the same time. All right, Tayo Tunji on WhatsApp says, it's a laugh that the person who supervised Lagos and its opaque budget for 16 years wants to make the federal budgets transparent. All right, Tunji. You can send your messages in via WhatsApp on 0809 444 0981. That's the WhatsApp number. All right, let's head to the nation. The Christian Association of Nigeria, CAN, has condemned the brutal murder of a butcher, Usman Buddha, by a horde of religious extremists in Sokoto State for alleged blasphemy. Another sad one coming out there. I mean,
from Sokoto.
We really shouldn't be hearing about these things, but here we are once again.
It is really heartbreaking that again in Sokoto, another person is killed. And guess what? The most important Muslim in this country is sitting in Sokoto. And if his influence cannot be brought to bear in the change of attitude of the people who are his followers, immediate followers in his vicinity, then what are we talking about? What are we talking about? This enlightenment is very important. Now, let us assume that this man, Buddha, actually was guilty of blaspheming the prophet. Under the Sharia law, there are processes. There's a procedure for punishment. So where does this idea of individuals taking the law into their hands and becoming the accuser and the executors of the punishment, where Where do they derive the power? And because they've done it and gotten away with it before, why can't they do it again? It was the same Sokoto that Deborah Samuel was a student in a tertiary institution, was killed by the mere allegation. Even in this case, mere allegation. This time around, it's a Muslim killed by fellow Muslims. And then the question is, what do they learn? What have they learned from their religion? What have they gained from the words of the prophets? The same prophet they want to defend his honor, I'm sure it didn't encourage any of his followers to just get up and kill people at will. Because there are laid down procedures for trial and all that, and eventually punishment for the individual.
Now, Joseph, when we talk about there not being consequences to action, I know that while we had this conversation about there not being consequences, and that was even before we even came to this story. Now, this is clearly another case of people doing certain things and getting away with it, basically, not being held accountable. Now,
yeah.
What do we need to do at this point in time? Because we've heard one too many of these kind of stories coming out where people just take the law into their own hands, and at the end of the day, we don't hear anything about it, or they may be held for a few days or whatever, and then they're let loose again.
Yeah, it's a political will to do the right thing. Yeah, the political will to do the right thing. And people pander to a religious sentiment, and they are blackmailed into not doing the right thing. And people are allowed that to happen. If you have a system that works, definitely there will be 1, 2, 3 persons who are involved in the act of killing Deborah who should have been identified. In that case, they were even arrested. The state government ridiculously charged them with in fact, a charge that doesn't exist compared to the crime they committed. So there was a deliberate, you could say that there was a deliberate effort to frustrate that trial from the beginning. So when you do that, then you send a clear message to people that they can do anything and get away with it. But if you have the political will to deal with situations like that, it doesn't matter whoever the person is or whatever religion he professes, you punish him, you did do the right thing according to the law, and and swiftly so that the message is passed. Now, when this man was killed, I want to quote what his neighbor said. He's a butcher, and he said, one of them said, Usman is my immediate neighbor. He is very religious. In fact, he belonged to Izala said. We prayed and attended Tisa together at primary board headquarters. There is no way he could make such a statement against the Holy Prophet. There must be a reason behind his murder, because he's very popular in his business of selling cow entrails and was envied by many of his colleagues. So in this incident, for example, there is no how people who did it cannot be identified. So how many persons have been arrested? What is the, these are the issues. And there is no basis for this at all. To start with, there is no reason for it. There's no reason why. You say somebody blaspheming the prophet. Yeah, don't you have the right to execute the person? So the clerics in Sokoto have got serious work to do. And that's why I'm concerned, because that's the seat of the Sultan himself, who is the leader of Muslims in Nigeria. And we will employ him to take responsibility to ensure that the correct message is passed on to the followers by clerics in the mosque. They should explain to the people that they don't have the right to just get up on mere allegation. You don't substantiate it, you don't verify it. And that's what the court process is supposed to do, because then you are arraigned, you're challenged by the judge, and then you answer questions, and then there's proof of evidence that this is what you did before you can be punished.
All right. Let me take one or two messages before we call it today on Freshly Pressed. This is from Fabian. Fabian says, good morning. There was a fatal accident that occurred in Benin yesterday, and the root cause was the bad road as well as overspeeding by a truck. Bad roads are basically due to the failure to follow quality standards as well as a lack of accountability. People never get punished, so there's no deterrence. Same thing we actually said.
Same issue. Yeah.
All right. Tony says, we cannot continue to pretend or shy away from these gruesome killings in the name of religion until it turns back to haunt us. The law enforcement agent should do something about this, as we pray there will not be a reprisal someday. All right. Thank you, Tony. And thank you to all our listeners who sent in messages this morning. And a big thank you to you, Joseph, for joining me on Freshly Pressed to take a look at stories.
My pleasure, as always. And I wish you a very lovely weekend. Lagos, I hope you all take care of yourself and stay safe.
All right. Thank you so much, Joseph. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, Lagos. And we've come to the end of Freshly Pressed, but stick around. At 8:15 will be time for us to go into the locker room, and it'll be time to talk sports. Stay with us and keep listening to Smooth 98.1.